Josartan successfully struck a decisive blow against an army of the ruling Tokugawa clan, with minimal damage to his own force. The direction of history had been clearly indicated. Counterattacks, long since set in motion, still occurred, but even small British armies proved impossible to contend with in open battle. The only slice of hope for the Japanese was that the slowness of the British raid on Edo, on account of the meddling French, had given them a chance to raise major armies for a counterattack. As said armies marched, a traitor was discovered among the British ranks back near Kyoto.
"You've been a naughty boy! How much did they offer you?"
"Nothing. Nothing but peace and fair employment. You think that anything good will come of serving the general? We should never have come here. We'll be strung up along with him. You should join me, Major."
"What a weak little insect you must be! You do whatever the general tells you, even though he's not your daddy! And even if they do show you the noose, you should pull it right down, tie it around their necks, and have a good, honest horse rip their spines out like the stem from a strawberry."
So, it's true what they say about you.
"What do they say about me?"
That you are a strange creature, not quite man, insane to be precise.
"People think that I'm insane. But I've been so good. I conquered that whole island. Why do people say such mean things about me?"
Could you not hear what you yourself were saying just now?
"Not in the slightest. Now you, little man, shall be punished for your desertion and treachery."
"Do it, then. No worse than what you will all get soon enough."
"Captain, bring my wagon up from the baggage, and give each of the men one of the pieces inside. This, my foolish friend, is the most dishonorable execution technique known to man, perfect for scum like you. Death by 1,000 vertebrae! We'll send your soul to the spine god, like in the ancient legends of the Order."
Welcome to another episode of Honourable Gentlemen. To start things off, I'm moving out with Dorian, who hasn't done anything in a while, to go and capture Gifu. He's on a mission to go east and link up with Charles, who's just over the river to his east there in Mino, currently beset by various enemies, but a quick bit of conquest actually brings our border up to his flank, and now we can move over to join him if we like. I'm not actually going to sally out with Charles, even though we could, because it doesn't really matter. George is capturing a castle near the place where we just recreated our French vassal in order to have a bit more control over the area. The only problem is that by wasting time doing this, we're not really defending the point he was assigned to defend, which you can see just there over to the right is currently being beset by the Nagaoka. They've come across the river and are looking very threatening there with over 2 stacks of troops. Joss also has issues because the port behind him has been captured by the Odawara, and now our ships are being destroyed by the coastal guns, so we need to try and take it back. I did initially fight this army outside the castle to kill everything at once, but after I got to the end of the battle the game crashed, I rage quit and didn't want to fight it again. So I'm going to leave the castle under siege, which is a little bit of a worse situation in terms of the balance bar at least, but hopefully it will put off fighting that battle again for a bit so I can keep my sanity. Now the Nagaoka came over and attacked Shimosa, not good news. I thought maybe a battle here could be viable if we have a castle that's greater than the first level, but we didn't, so we're trapped in here with the enemy easily able to come over the walls and then charge into a melee before we shoot them too much, whereas if we had had 2 levels of castle we would have delayed them so much more that our ranged advantage might have turned things around. Instead, we're going to have problems, since the enemy will just quickly rush over and get our Kingsguard into melee. Sometimes they'll keep shooting while they're in melee. It's a little bit varied. Someone said that it happens only when you're in kneel fire, but it also sometimes doesn't happen in kneel fire. I don't quite know the case. As you can see, we ended up just fighting in melee all over the place, so our ranged advantage isn't going to come in handy. Our guys are probably better than theirs in melee, but we're just very outnumbered. Over here there was a curious occurrence. This unit of levy infantry was garrisoned into the wall. And I think, from Vanilla Shogun 2 at least, there's a bonus to your melee combat stats when you're garrisoned into a wall. And I was trying to use this to hold off enemy units, and it actually proved to be far more powerful than I expected. A little bit later, virtually all of my men are dead, but the levies are fine, and they've killed hundreds of enemies. They're not even garrisoned into the wall anymore. It seems the melee buff has just carried with them even after they left. So they put a pretty good performance in. They killed 400 to 500 enemies, taking about 20 or 30 casualties themselves, and considering they're supposed to be the worst unit in the game, that's pretty damn good. Meanwhile, our elite units did not put in the same performance. We ended up losing the battle due to the enemy capturing the capture point, so our remaining units were deleted. Looking at the results, you can see the great performance of the levy infantry. I think there's a mostly unused exploit of some kind going on here. Garrisoning your men into the wall just before the enemy climb, or as they climb, gives them the melee buff. If you do it before the enemy start climbing, they won't climb, they'll just shoot you in most cases, which doesn't go very well, which is why I never garrison the walls. But looks like running over to the wall at the last second might actually be extremely effective. Now the enemy went on to take the next castle, which was pretty annoying because my howitzers, which had been in George's army but I left them behind, were just sitting in there, and now they're gone. So George is running out of men rapidly. Half of his force is gone, including all of the artillery. As for Joss, he gets attacked by a sallying force of the Odawara, so it's 2 stacks right here. But the good news is they're nothing special. They've got loads of samurai and low quality ranged infantry, so we can just whip out the usual. The most interesting thing happened right at the start when the enemy's cavalry came around our right flank and actually posed a little bit of a threat. The only reason the enemy didn't do more damage than they do here is that they kept switching targets. They started attacking the infantry, then they went after the dragoons who I'd brought over to shoot into the flanks. Joss came over as well to do the same thing, and between all of these units, the enemy just sort of got killed. They didn't manage to pick a unit and engage it, and if they had, they probably would have won against any of the things I had there, but it all went well in the end. As for the actual fight, while I was microing those cav, the enemy's first stack was just destroyed, and obviously it's going to be a similar story for the second one. Something's up. Scouts are talking about Japs crossing the river at Shimosa, but we had men there, I was sure of it. And no news from George ever since that letter about the Frenchies rising from the dead, whatever he meant by that. He wasn't serious, was he? We would have heard something by now, from someone, whatever the case. The line of comms must have been severed, meaning we're out here on our bloody own. Even the floaties have scarpered off somewhere. I shouldn't have waited to storm Edo. I really thought I was doing the little colonel a favour by waiting for him to show up and join me for the big day. If this really is their capital, he'd be livid if I went in and swapped the flags over without him. And now he's gone silent. Got no excuse to go look for him either. Just gotta keep working on the mission. We'll get the supply line back up and running, and hope that little mongrel in gold braids stumbles out of the wilderness with a bit of juice left in him. The battle is won then, with low casualties for us and a great ratio. We captured a couple of wooden cannon teams who I think I sent out as a sacrifice to go auto-resolve somewhere, so we won't be seeing those guys again. The Odawara immediately asked for peace, but of course we always turn that down. Now, some interesting news. We've got a new family member, Yumi Alcock, and she is the offspring of Charles and Cal, as it turns out. So they've finally started extending the family. Good for them. Obviously, children of that generation are far too young to ever appear in this campaign, so it doesn't matter for gameplay purposes at least. George has found himself somewhat stuck here. There are lots of enemy armies in front of us now, and we're cut off from Joss. So we're going to try and work to get through this blockade. I also need to repair my fleets, which I can't do right now because the docks we just captured are all destroyed, but we'll get working on that. John Alcock is taking out a Wakayama army that was sneaking around via the old hidden route on the edge of the coast there. Luckily we're wise to this trick since they've done it before, so I've got armies hanging around, including John in this case. So we take them down. Didn't get the best auto-resolve because I couldn't get all my armies into the battle, but still, that got rid of them for now. Nearby, here's something interesting. There was a Wakayama castle here, and I just sent Jervis to go auto-resolve it without thinking twice about what was going on. But I realised during the auto-resolve, we're fighting British troops in that battle. It seems that the enemy agent that kept causing all those rebellions, this time caused a small garrison to betray us and join the Wakayama. So Jervis just went in and slaughtered everyone willy-nilly, probably not even realising he was killing British troops, to be fair. And we've got our castle back. It also explains why we didn't have the castle before, since I was pretty sure the Wakayama didn't take it, but when I reload saves I don't really pay attention to the details of what's been going on. Anyway, now Dorian is going to come over here to try and actually help Charles. We attack an army outside the castle and it runs away. So there we go, that means they're weaker than us, or at least the AI thinks it's weaker than us. It's probably right. And now we have a more balanced setup there. Not that we're really going for a battle, or just making sure things are safe. Now we're in the next turn. Joss has been besieged at Edo Port by 2 armies. He probably could break out, but I'm willing to leave the enemy just sitting outside, since if they try to attack us, they'll probably fail, and if they don't attack us, we may have time to get George over to help us out. Now he's going to have to run a gauntlet. I decided the best thing to do is just try and walk past all of these enemy armies. We've got 4 stacks of Nagaoka troops. We can just about walk past them, but we're not out of their movement range, so we can get swarmed by them at this point, and it's just a case of waiting to see what happens. How challenging will they make this for us? To start off, they're going to make it relatively easy. An army appears from somewhere and attacks George from the front. It's just a 1 army against our 2/3 of an army battle, and since our troops are quite good, half of them are at least, that's not so bad. I formed a line with alternating quality, so putting an alternation of Kingsguard and recruits to make sure our quality is spread along the whole line somewhat. A line battle breaks out and we can hope to win that one, and our lancers were able to attack the enemy flank once the battle started. Since they were distracted, we can easily mow down several units and just work our way along the enemy formation, taking extra units out of the fight. Apart from that, there's not much else for us to do. We just sit back and hope that we win this gunfight. We'll certainly take losses, especially when the enemy are focus firing onto Kingsguard like they are on the left end of our line. However, we still do have the ranged advantage and naval support fire and our cavalry, so that should be enough altogether. How was the march? Was there fighting? The scouts reported the road was blockaded, but wouldn't you know it, we just kept walking on looking for it, until suddenly we found you. They are growing weary of engaging us. The Japanese have strict discipline, and will not want to act without orders from the shogunate. As I understand it, our colonels are making sure the shogun and the Bakumatsu Council are distracted. Sounds like you've got it all figured out. And yet, it still was not a waste for me to journey here, I hope. Of course not. It is good to see you again, although I cannot stay with you for long. I shall be brief. I understand that you have become a member of the board in the Alcock Company. A formality. It is my father's wish. Yes, but I fear that it is already too much. The company is going to be fiercely audited soon, and those at the top will not be spared. What makes you so sure of that? You have to trust me, Charles. I want to warn you that London and the Crown have come to consider this war illegal. The rate of casualties is ridiculous, and your father's keen personal interest in not seeking a peaceful settlement has caused grievous offence. Perhaps too much offence for him to survive this. This information is not available in newspapers, Mr. Cartwright. You've been listening elsewhere, haven't you? All I will say is be very, very careful. I don't think you deserve what the greedy marshals are going to start throwing at you. It's fine. I have come to a private arrangement in that regard. A private? I can't say I understand. That is the best way we can leave it, I think. But I thank you most graciously for the concern. You had no obligation to help me. Now, as I said, I must get going. Urgent business? Yes, urgent and messy. No nurses on hand as it stands. Oh yes, been awake so damned long I forgot to mention it. I do have some news. Things ended up okay. Not the eye-watering stomp that we sometimes get, but a pretty good ratio. The army's still in condition to fight, and the question now was, will it have to fight again? Because the Nagaoka have lots more stuff in the area. One army walks past, a second army comes over to attack me. They've got the advantage here, and I perhaps foolishly retreated, since that will make me retreat in the direction I was going anyway. But then they didn't attack me afterwards, and I felt a bit underwhelmed, like it would have been more interesting to actually just stand there and keep fighting, even though it wasn't really the objective. Anyway, we'll just have to move on. The Kawana go and attack Gifu Castle, which was left unoccupied by Dorian when he went over to save Charles, so somewhat inevitable, didn't really try to defend this territory, but we should be able to get it back soon enough, because the front line, now defended by Lawrence, is pretty quiet, so I might as well start moving out. Now, an unfortunate turn of events occurred over here, with this one little gunship, which we've seen before, was able to resist enemy attacks by hiding in ports and having the coastal guns take them down, take the enemy down that is. But in this case, after retreating from the initial engagement, we didn't end up in the port, we ended up next to it, so we didn't get any coastal guns to help us out. I thought maybe I can hide behind these rocks and wait for the time limit to run out or something, but there is no time limit in a battle fought after retreating, so that's not going to work. Now, a long time later I just charged at the enemy. It was a very long time because the AI glitched out and stopped attacking me for a long time, but finally I got them to shoot me, and the battle was lost. There we have it. I don't think we even managed to get a single shot onto them before our gunboat was sunk, so its armour clearly wasn't good enough. Now I'm going to make a little advance down here against the Kawana in the Key Peninsula. My vague strategic objective now is to take this whole peninsula, because it will shorten our front line by like half and make life a lot easier. And in the same vein, I'm advancing here with Lawrence to take out some armies on the road near our front line, because I want to secure one more castle in this area, again just to shorten the front line. We've ended up with a 2-on-2 stack battle, but the enemy stacks are worse. We have so many troops in our combined armies that I can form this gigantic line that covers the entire map, outflank that, but we don't really need it in this case because the enemy army isn't that wide. We also have one of these battles where fighting sort of breaks out in skirmish form on the edges of the formations. The enemy formation is at a weird angle to ours for some reason, so the edge of their left is in contact with our right, so we've started fighting before the AI has switched on effectively and realised it's supposed to be microing its units, meaning the individual units with their individual scripting will take part in the fight, but they won't receive any orders. The eventual result was that, as I tightened my formation and kept engaging the enemy's left, more and more units were killed without the enemy reacting. They did eventually commit to a fight, but by the time they did, they'd lost so much stuff that there was just no chance. Another classic battle where the AI has thrown itself out the window. Now we just have to put it out of its misery. I'm a grandfather. Oh, that little man has finally done it. Siring an heir with a royal heiress, no less. Now there's a fate more grand than the Hong Kong doldrums, to be sure. Whatever happens now, the ministers can't take that away from us, so this was all worth it. And if there is any good in the world, we'll come away with much more besides. In the last telegram from London, they said that any assets purchased by the Alcock Company using military money, all of them then, would be confiscated. Confiscated. As if there is some reason why I should not enjoy the product of my labours. If there is spare room in the budget for economic development of a future colony, then is that not to my merit and not my shame?
foolish home counties toffs. Gone their whole life without a pinch of opium, and now they think they can be the judges of my work. I'll show them. I've got enough men to match any army they can muster this far from home. And I've got that thing, Major Jervis. Yes, I think he will prove to be a fine negotiator, in a sense. Calm down. We'll be fine. We'll be absolutely fine. Now back to the product testing.
Soon all we're left with is a giant ring of our men around piles of enemy bodies. A easy decisive victory, something like a 1-to-10 ratio there, the standard good ratio for our armies. With those enemies defeated, now we're clear to move on and try and make something of this area. First I took out this small nearby Kawana army. My plan is to use that bridge you can see just behind Lawrence there. That's a nice front line position that's really short in comparison to what we're doing now. So first we need to go south and take 1 or 2 castles, I think, just to secure that position. Now over with George, we're able to go and save Joss from the Matsudaira who are besieging him right now. Not that he especially needs saving, but might as well. However, this did prove to be more difficult than I expected. First I moved George over into reinforcement range, then I was going to sally with Joss, making Joss lead the attack because he has the more substantial army. But it just didn't work like that. For whatever reason, I'm not allowed to sally against this force. The attack option isn't available. I believe the explanation must be something along the lines of the army to the left has its zone of control over the area where Joss's army needs to stand to attack the army on the right. And since I'm not allowed to go into the army on the left's zone of control without attacking the army on the left, which I can't do because the army on the right has us under siege, overall, I just couldn't do anything. You might think I could still attack with George, but apparently not. He also can't initiate the battle, so we ended up not saving them for now. The Nagaoka go and take out the French again, so trying to establish the French as our vassal is proving surprisingly difficult. They ask for peace and we're going to be turning that down. Then the Matsudaira go for a castle assault against Joss, which I guess is the easier option than us trying to sally out and fight them. Their armies similar in size to ours, but it's way worse, and we have a high level castle, so the enemy's chances are quite slim. Our navy blasts the enemy's reinforcements as they march towards the castle. Reinforcement armies tend to group together a lot more, so they're very vulnerable to naval support fire, and we do get some very juicy hits, wrecking these units, so they're going to be low on men and morale as they arrive, as well as being exhausted because they ran up the hill to try and catch up to the leading units. Those leading units are also getting blown up here, using the fact that if I attack my own castle walls, the weird physics stuff will kill extra enemies, so we're probably doing a decent amount of damage there. And a few men have now made it to our position right in the middle of the castle, where it's the usual double line, but both lines are elite, so on their own they're going to do absolutely fine. Our firepower will be overwhelming. The only place where the enemy found some success was here against our leftmost unit of Scots Guards, because they climbed up the wall to outflank them, meaning they didn't get shot very much. And they even used units like these ninja, who might do okay in the melee, but Scots Guards are also really good in melee, so they'll probably trade 1-for-1 with the ninja rather than seeing the usual slaughters against enemy melee units. George's army was also coming up behind the enemy's reinforcements. They're not going to see much action, but the cavalry did arrive in time to fight with the enemy's general. Our dragoons started dueling with their Hatamoto. I'm going to swap them out with our colonial lancers, who get their bonus against cavalry, so that's going to be a nice easy kill on the enemy general, which will no doubt not help how things are going over here. More smoke represents me destroying my own castle even more in an attempt to slow the enemy down. Plenty more units are going for that cheeky flank climb, but I put a unit of my own to fire onto that position, although there was a weird audio glitch, so we can't look at that too much. I'd also ordered these Scots Guards to fold away to be less vulnerable to such an attack. It took them a very long time to do it, due to a classic bug when moving around in castles. Sometimes half the unit moves and the other half waits 30 seconds to move. Once they're in their good position, the fighting continues and they just slaughter everyone running up to them. The fire from the wall above no doubt hastening that process. A few enemy units are still alive. You can see on the balance bar the enemy army isn't doing well, and we're still blowing the hell out of everyone trying to get into the castle. Looks like they're not going to achieve much. Soon, everything routs, and their routing column went right through George's approaching army, so they were absolutely slaughtered, and I believe only one enemy troop escaped the battlefield alive, which in many ways is better than zero, because now the enemy will know of our true power and know that we're coming for their capital. That is all for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to the OfficiallyDevin patrons. We're in a position to end the campaign right now, but I am stalling because I want to try out the new toys that I'm currently deploying against the Wakayama, including Gatling guns, so we will no doubt move very close to finishing things, at least in the next part of Honourable Gentlemen.